Then the other big UFC title fight news is that Kamaru Usman will fight Jorge Masvidal in April at UFC 261 in a rematch, which is interesting. It's what Usman asked for after he beat Gilbert Burns, and it's a quick turnaround, which you love. This puts Usman on pace to potentially defend his belt 3 times in a calendar year, which would kind of be a lock, especially at welterweight for me for fighter of the year. And it's this strange situation where you have the champ defend his title and then they'll lose against someone, and then the loser of that match gets a rematch without having fought since, while the champ has. So I think it's pretty clear that the main incentive behind this is money. That card that Masvidal was last on 1 week's notice did 1.3 million pay-per-view buys. Usman, as defending champ, will get a nice share of those pay-per-view points. So there's no messing about and saying why this matchup was made, but that doesn't mean it's not interesting. Like I said, last time the fight was made on 6 days notice, and Jorge Masvidal's main concern was just making weight for that fight and being there and able to step into the octagon on the right time. He wasn't doing takedown defense in camp. He wasn't game planning for Usman. In my opinion, he belongs to the best gym in the world. So it is going to be interesting. He's real. You've seen like constantly him talking like, I'm going to end these crotch sniffers. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to put an end to this wet blanket style, which I love because I completely agree with all of his criticisms of that style. It's like, I saw this great 45-second clip of him the other day just saying like, I don't hate grappling. Like, if you want to take me down and try and pound me out and beat the piss out of me, that's awesome. Go for it. I love it. It's the guys who just want to hang on to me and like smother me without an inch of breathing room, get me into some position where they're just stronger and win the round by holding me and stay just active enough to like not have the ref separate. That's what I call crotch sniffing and wet blanketing. And I completely agree with him in that mixed martial arts at its core is like this simulated death match that gets to like one of the most primordial forms of competition you can find. And that's what I love about it. So Usman was really heat of the moment after that Burns knockout, saying like, I will finish you this time. So he doesn't have to do it on the feet. If he wants to take Masvidal down and try and ground and pound him, try and hunt a submission, and he can do that, then that's just as amazing as if he can stop Masvidal on the feet. But you just hope he's going to be willing to accept some risk in this fight, because to be fair, we talked about Masvidal taking the fight on 6 days notice. So did Usman, and it's understandable why he'd want to play it safe. I started the segment off saying he's potentially setting himself up for an easy lock into fighter of the year, but part of that would be beating Masvidal in the sense of combat, not just in the sense of scoring. So I'm going to be really interested. Masvidal's had almost a year to work on his wrestling defense. He's the best camp in the world is getting over a month to game plan for this. It's short enough notice that the division's not being held hostage for an extra 6 months to make this fight happen. So even though it's a situation of the UFC just going with the lucrative matchmaking option, the short noticeness of it, and the fact that the first fight was like a 6 days thing, and the fact that Masvidal is such a charismatic, interesting guy who has showing these flashes of just absolute brilliance in the cage, it does very much entice me. I don't know. I did want to ask you if you thought that this storyline of, yeah, he got dominated once, but he took that fight on 6 days. He's had almost a year to prepare for this. It's a full camp this time. It's going to be different. Does that sell? Does that convince?
I I think it's more the sell of just them getting the rematch. more so than just like it's going to be the buildup is going to be different this time. I think you really got to be appreciative of the sport itself to know how much prep and training goes into it. Cause I don't think a lot of people understand how much these guys train on the strengths and weaknesses and game plans of the other fighters. Um, so when you look at it from a casual fan perspective like me, I guess you take into the account that like taking it on a week's notice is going to be a little bit of a disadvantage, but I don't think people truly appreciate how much of a difference game planning and having that extra time can really play into a fight like this.
And I think the big question coming off is Masvidal trains at the same camp as Poirier, and those calf kicks, those leg kicks were a huge story in the Poirier McGregor. So that's going to be a real. Masvidal's so violent and ferocious. Like one leg kick really could totally swing this fight in his favor. Um, like I said, Matt Brown, AT American top team in Florida, for my money, is the best camp in the world. Close second would be Trevor Whitman's camp out in Colorado, where Usman is currently trading. So not only do you have a juggernaut in fighters matchup, but like two juggernaut camps going at it. And yeah, the tactics and the decision making is going to be really interesting. You just hope Usman keeps his word and wants to make this one a little more interesting than I'm going to hold you against the cage and stomp on you and pummel you enough to win the rounds. Because even on that short notice, Masvidal did show great takedown defense. He got held against the cage, but he stopped most of the takedowns, and when he was taken down, he was able to get up. So interesting to hear that does have some persuasion in terms of full camp. Then, real quick, in terms of matchmaking, you've got a lot of other interesting ones this week in Cody Garbrandt, Rob Font looking for a main event, and also in the bantamweight division, Corey Sandhagen, TJ Dillashaw. The latter should have immediate title challenger implications at this point. Garbrandt versus Font is also an awesome matchup, though, that I can't wait for. I really hope to see Garbrandt stay at bantamweight. I think let the flyweights just do their thing. Yeah, and then the other thing was Wonder Boy and Gilbert Burns both teasing fights, so I'm wondering if they're going to be matched up against each other. Leon Edwards being the other name in the mix that you hope to see, maybe Bilal Muhammad as well. But it's been an awesome week for UFC matchmaking, and I'm just so much more optimistic and excited for the next couple months as of today than I was a week ago with all these awesome fights announced, and fingers crossed they happen.